Hey guys, it's me, EODGamer here, and in this video I want to talk about follow-up attacking teams and versus break teams in terms of many different aspects. This video is going to be a follow-up series to the previous video of 8 teams in Honkai Star Rail. You don't need to know that video in order to watch this one, because here we are just like zooming in. If you care about like the bigger meta and all the other kind of teams, you can check that video out for any of you who are interested. But for those of you who are here, just for follow-up and break, let's talk about it in 4 different aspects. Look at these cute icons, this brain with a smiley. I'm also going to talk about it. First things first, a lot of us are always trying to like transition and making sure our accounts are as meta as we can. But one thing for sure is, it's very, very expensive to transition to the teams. I just put some random characters that are that are best suited for follow-up attacking or break, in my opinion at least, on screen, and you can see that a lot of these characters don't actually play into the current thematics of whether it's Akirion Nihility teams or whether it's, for example, Kafka, Black Swan kind of team composition, Jingliu team composition, Hyper Carry, Zila, Mono Quantum teams, and blah blah blah. Very few characters actually spill over to these two, and as a small spender, free to play, or a player who doesn't have too much resources to build every single character, let's talk about it, which is better in my opinion. First things first, strength, very, very easy to talk about. Both of them, in my opinion, are definitely S tier right now. Both team compositions are super, super strong. One thing to note, of course, is follow-up attacking teams are generally split into 2. The first kind are the ones that counter the enemies, which we talked about in our team composition video. I won't expand on characters that counter and is like more slow related and stuff in this follow-up analysis. I'm looking more at like the characters that you see on screen rather than characters like Clara, Blade, who are generally reliant on counter attacking style. For example, like March 7, Clara. Why is there a distinguishing factor? Is because counter attackers rely on the enemy's speed to move faster, which is a bit less of our control, and the developers can tweak the numbers anytime. On the other hand, these characters here you see on screen, you can control their numbers. You can tweak their speed, you can tweak their attack, you can tweak who breaks more so Himiko follow-ups, who does more damage so Herta follow-ups. These kind of characters you generally have more control. Counter attackers, you are generally receiving the enemy's attacks, which means it's less control from the player side of things. So that's why I'm going to just like talk about it from this point of view. Just a quick disclaimer. For break teams, similarly, is super, super strong. They're getting a lot more buffs and who knows, maybe new relic sets in future and new characters that specialize in it. They are both, in my opinion, equal in strength. We can talk about versatility and stuff like that later on in the last section here with this chart. But generally speaking, you can't really go wrong with either of them. The one that I think is a bit trickier to say, and this is like this brain section here. So I would say the more brain you use, the lower tier it is, because I don't like to think, you don't like to think. We want something that's easy and does a lot of damage, right? In my opinion, I think both of them require some sort of understanding of the game. They are not a beginner-friendly kind of team composition that is just bunga, just whack. You still have to care about like who goes first, fine-tuning numbers, understanding mechanics, break effect, and whatever not. For that matter, I think that follow-up attacking is slightly easier to understand compared to a team like Break. Follow-up attacking is a little bit more straightforward because you scale off like traditional multipliers like crit rate, crit damage, which is easy for any beginner from any other game to understand. Whereas Break is a very specific to Honkai Star Rail aspect, and if you are a super new player and you have no idea like what is the things that matter in the game so far, building Break straight away might start to be very, very confusing. A lot of things to understand all at once. Not only you have to care about typing, AoE, characters that are meta, characters that are outside of meta, you also need to start caring about break effect and future possibilities and stuff. So I think that Break is definitely a little bit for advanced players, a bit more experienced players. I would recommend follow-up attacking team compositions generally if you are a newer player to the game. With a caveat, of course. So that is my opinion of like the brain factor in all of this. The next one, you see these money bags here, is talking about how much investment is needed to get it going. Unfortunately, it's opposite of the brains, because I think that break teams are S tier in terms of value for money. You can get free characters like Harmony MC, who is like super, super strong. Unfortunately, some of the best break buffers in the game are... Okay, maybe I won't put it as S because the DPSs still technically are limited. Maybe I'll put it at A+. A core character in break teams is Harmony MC, which gives you that super break damage. We have tons of video talking about the theory on this character already. You can check them out on the channel. Don't want to bore you too much with other information that you might have already known. So Harmony MC free, everyone benefits from them. A 4-star character is also a pretty solid DPS as we've shown you so far. Xury is very, very good as well. The other cores in the team is like Runmei, who's a limited 5-star, and she's used everywhere, but makes it very versatile, easy to switch into this composition, which means that the money back's value to switch into break is actually quite cheap. You don't really need too much effort going. If you have Runmei, it's very, very affordable to get into. If you plan to get Runmei in future, it's also very affordable to get into. You just need to look for a main DPS that scales with break. If you don't have boot heal, you don't have eventual characters that scale break, Xury is always a good alternative to let you start trying out this team composition. A caveat, you must want or have Runmei in order to see this value at A+. On the other hand, follow-up attacking team compositions, if you're talking about the meta best follow-up team, which is Robin, Dr. Ratio, Topaz and Nambi, as well as Aventurine, this team is super expensive. But on the flip side, if you're talking about just a pure fiction Ice and Fire, a song of Ice and Fire, then it's kind of quite cheap, because Herta is a free character that we can get all to is it E5 or E6 for free if you clear the simulated universe. Himiko is of course a standard 5-star, which we can all choose from the standard banner if you maybe don't want Bronya and etc. other characters. So I would say that these three on you can see here on this line, Himiko, Dr. Ratio and Herta, are situationally cheap to afford. For that factor, I think that follow-up attacking could be cheaper, but I want to just talk about it in terms of like the meta, the best team compositions available, and that is definitely not very cheap to afford. The only calming factor is probably Dr. Ratio, who is free for a while. So if you are a person who is coming into the game right after Dr. Ratio has ended, I would say that the affordability of of the follow-up teams outside of like Himiko, Herta teams, if you're talking about just the main meta to match up against the break teams, because these break teams can be fought anywhere, so you want to like apple to comparison, I would say follow-up attacking, if you didn't get Dr. Ratio, is far more inefficient, far more expensive compared to a break team, which is much more cheaper, especially if you have 1 or 2 particular characters as well. In future, if new characters come out, they are even meta, then of course you can see that break value is going to drop to like A if you need more limited characters as well. So I do see this as like possibly like this, especially if we have another limited character that's coming up too. Then it'll be more or less even depending on the state of your account. Last but not least, I want to talk about flexibility, investment value. How well do I think that they will scale with time, as we do with most of the investment channels, videos on this channel as well, talking about characters and their longevity. Let's talk about teams and their longevity. Firstly, both of them are relatively new meta changes. If you look at the changing meta, we just exited from like a DOT meta. You could argue we are still in a DOT meta, but they haven't sold us a new DOT character, a new set in a while. They are really focusing a lot more on follow-up attacking since Penacony's official launch. You can see 1 character here, 2 characters here, free Dr. Ratio. A lot of characters to buff this follow-up attacking aspect. And break, we are starting to see it now. Finally we're getting into it, which is like Harmony MC, boot heal, maybe a new DPS. These two are like the flavors of the month. Of course they can't get rid of DOT, so you see some in the pure fiction game modes now still having like DOT buffs, which is expected because you don't want to alienate your player base way too early. So both of them play into rising thematics, but I think the one that stands a higher chance of success might be break, especially if a very popular DPS might scale off with break effect. That could switch the meta. One side Akirion, one side another popular DPS, who knows about that, but that is another way they can go. I think it's going to be very efficient. I think it's going to scale very well. We have to see what the developers want to do, but break in a sense is the essence of Honkai Star Rail that hasn't been tapped on yet, because you have that bar all the time, but after that bar is broken, like it doesn't really matter, right? Enemy is slower, you don't do more damage, etc. But I see a lot of mechanics that they can play around break, and I think that break is possibly going to be here to stay for a little while longer compared to follow attacking, and it's a very good diversifier away from crit gear that you already have from your other account. So in terms of stonks, in terms of outperformance, I think that break teams will likely be much better to invest in for a free-to-play player, a player who wants more play styles, wants overall account health. Focusing on break will be much better. And just for the sake of it, I think follow attacking is still very, very good in the current meta. Is definitely going to get stronger, especially we have more follow-up characters that can fit into the meta team. But one thing for sure is they do share a lot of resources like crit rate gear, crit damage gear, supports that are very, very strong, supports that are quite niche as well, which is why I think is slightly underperforming Brick. But that is just my personal opinion. If you appreciate such content, do like and subscribe for more such future videos, and I highly recommend you check out the video where we talk about all 8 teams in Honkai Star Rail, and you can really see maybe which one you like, which one you want to focus on, and what you hope to expand in future. But this, I hope you find it helpful, just breaking down follow-up attacking and Brick teams, and see you in the next video.